What is going on, everybody? I am very excited because today we get to talk about multiplying fractions. So one of the things that you got to have hammered down is that you're able to simplify, because we're going to be doing what's called cross canceling. There is some extra steps that we need to look at when we're dealing with mixed numbers and multiplying, which we're definitely going to go over thoroughly. But the nice thing is that we don't have to find common denominators. So most of the time, if anything, out of all fractions, that most kids feel that the multiplying is much easier than the adding and subtracting. So you may find the same thing. I hope you find this useful. Please make sure that you're subscribing, commenting, liking, and all that. It will definitely help me out.
All right, so let's take a look at our first problem here, which is 3/8 times 16 over 21. Now, as I said before, we don't have to find a common denominator, which is great. But what we can do is cross cancel. So what I always like to do is be very methodical about this. I'm going to start at the top left over here where the 3 is. We want to see if the 3 can either go into the 21 or to the 8. All right, we can't go on the same level. It's got to be diagonally down. So top level with bottom level and vice versa. All right, so we're going to look. 3 can go into 21. Well, what are we saying to ourselves? Well, the common number that goes into both is actually 3. 3 goes into itself once. 3 goes into the 21 7 times. And then we're going to go over to the 16. I like to go clockwise. Is there a number that can go to both 8 and 16 evenly? Yes. Well, there's a couple. We want to use the largest possible. So we're looking at 2. Okay, 2 can work, but we might have something larger. 4 could actually work, but we actually could even go with 8. So let's go with 8. 8's our biggest one. 8 can go into 16 twice. It can go into 8 once. So what you end up getting is 2 7ths. Now, let's take a look at that again, because we're basically simplifying beforehand. Now, the nice thing about this is that, let's say that we did the 3 and the 21, but we missed out on the 16 and the 8. So if we just did this and got 16 over 56, you still always want to check to see if you could simplify. And a number that can go in both of these is 8, which we used before, and you end up getting 2 7ths. So you still want to check just in case you miss something, because you could have some where you have 3 fractions at a time. All right, let's take a look at one where we're multiplying by 3 fractions, which, yes, unfortunately, that can take place. So what's going to happen is, let's start with the 15. Is there anything that 15 can go in, or there's something that can go into both 15 and then something on the bottom? Well, you actually have 2 options here. You could go with the 20 or the 50. There's a number that can go into both. Let's go, it doesn't matter because you still should end up with the same result, but let's go with the 15 and 50. I know that 5 can go into both. 5 goes into the 15 3 times. It goes into the 50 10 times. All right? Now we'll move over to the 4. So we can do this multiple times, this cross-canceling. So there is something that the 4 can go into. It actually could go into the 10 or the 20. All right? I'm going to go with the 20. So 4 goes into itself once. It goes into 25 times. Now we have the 42. Well, the 42 and 10 could work. Also the 42 and the 7. Let's go with the 42 and the 7. All right, 7's going into both. 7 goes into itself once. It goes into 42 6 times. Now we have all these numbers in red are our new numbers. So we can actually start over if we want. Well, 3 can't go into anything in the bottom. 1 is basically your stopping point. 6, though, however, could go into the 10. So what's going into 6 and 10? Well, it's a 2. So 2 goes into 6 3 times. It goes into 10 5 times. Now, I know we have all these numbers here that are the same, but remember what we said before, you cannot cross-cancel unless they're on different levels. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Look to see if we can simplify in case we missed, and we're good. Okay, now we're going to be multiplying by what we call mixed numbers. Different from adding and subtracting, that a lot of kids think, oh, you just do the 2 times the 4 and then the fractions just like you did with adding and subtracting. But no, that's not what's going to happen here. We got to make these into improper fractions. So think of it like this. You're drawing these circles. You're basically doing the opposite of division. You're going to do 3 times 2, which is 6. Add it to the numerator, which is 1. So our new numerator is 7, and this 3 just gets brought on down. We'll do the same thing here. 7 times 4 is 28, plus the 6 all right, which is not working for me for a minute, which is 34. So we have 34 over 7. All right, now we can go ahead and multiply. So what ends up happening is that we want to see if we can cross cancel, and the 7s, luckily for us, will cancel out and we get 1s. The 3 cannot go into the 34. So we end up getting 34 over 3. And I will say this, most of the time when you're multiplying by mixed numbers, you end up with an improper fraction at the end, which kind of stinks. But just one extra step. 3 goes into 34. Remember, we always divide the bottom into the top. Goes in once. Bring the 4 down. Goes into that once. And since we're dealing with fractions, we're not going to write this as a remainder, but whatever's left over goes over top of your original divisor. So 11 1/3 would be your final answer.